Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT9, and BT9 offers us lots of new and powerful cards to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be a brand new iteration on the Gabubond deck. So yes, Gabubond is still a good deck, and we have the ability to tech him using all of these new tools that he's gotten to be able to make him into an OTK deck to fit on theme with, well, what BT9 is trying to do, which is going to be a high damage OTK format. So Gabubond already has the ability to attack multiple times, so now we have multiple different ways to be able to give him some extra punch to be able to break all of the opponent's security in one go, and potentially have an extra attack to be able to lethal them with. So going over the deck, starting with the Digitama, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Upamon. So Upamon is still one of the best generic Digitamas that Blue has to offer, especially when it comes to the consistency department. So it has a nice inheritable ability of when attacking once per turn. If the opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution sources in it in play, then we get to draw 1 card, and consistency is the name of the game to be able to make sure we could find our parts and pieces, so Upamon is just helping accomplish that goal. And then the 5th Digitama is kind of a flex spot. You don't necessarily have to run one if you don't want to, but I'm going to be running 1 copy of Xiaomon just to try to put some extra pressure onto the opponent when we're going to be using our level 4s, which is going to be actually quite a lot. So it has the nice inheritable ability where during all turns, while this Digimon is a level 4, then it gets plus 1000 DP to make our level 4s a little bit more annoying for the opponent to deal with, forcing a response from them, and then we could try to take advantage of that forced response. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gabumon. So this is the BT1 version of Gabumon, and this card is just a good cycling tool to help us draw some cards when we have something in our raising. So this card just has the on-play ability where we get to draw 1 card, so that way we're never really losing cards, and we're still gaining and digging cards through our deck to make it as consistent as we possibly can. On top of the fact that it is a Gabumon to be able to line up a potential warp play with. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gabumon. So this is the BT6 version of Gabumon, and this is the most important rookie in the entire deck. So what this card is doing is not only passively making our Tamers easier to play, because during all turns, once per turn, when you play a Tamer with Matt Ishida in its name, then we get to gain 1 memory, so it just helps us be able to use our Tamers more effectively, on top of the fact that it also has a nice inheritable ability that's going to be acting as the primary win condition for the deck, where when attacking once per turn, if this Digimon is Gabumon Bond of Friendship, then we get to unsuspend it, allowing us to be able to line up an extra attack with our bond, and if that attack has some extra punch to it, or if we already broke all the opponent's security because we added extra punch, then this is the attack that's going to be causing lethal for the opponent. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gabumon. So this is the EX1 version of Gabumon, and this version of Gabumon is going to be another consistency tool to try to use with our level 4s. So it has the nice inheritable ability where when attacking once per turn, we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, add 1 Tamer or 1 Digimon with Gabumon in its name from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So this just helps literally look for everything that we're looking for, which is going to be our Gabumons, our Bond of Friendship because it's still a Gabumon, and our Tamers to be able to line up our power plays to, well, make the deck as consistent as possible. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Gabumon. So this is a flex spot. It could really be anything you feel like you want it to be, but I still like the consistency on having all Gabumons just because we want to line up our warp play, and this just helps us be able to accomplish that. Plus, his inheritable ability isn't necessarily all that bad. It's not necessarily amazing, but it's not hurting the deck either, where during all turns, while you have 8 or more cards in your hand, then this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP, doing something very similar to Xiaomon, where we're trying to either A, make our Digimon a little bit stronger to force a response, or B, this card might not be doing anything at all, and it's just going to be acting as another Gabumon by name, because we might not be able to have 8 cards in our hand at all times. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Leomon. So this is the BT1 version of Leomon, and this is just helping with our overall memory manipulation. So he has the nice on-delete ability where we get to gain 2 memory, so ideally we're going to be swinging into the opponent's security to deal some good chip damage, and hopefully Leomon will end up dying, so that way we could gain the 2 memory to extend and enhance some of our plays with, and to be able to utilize both EX1 and the starter deck Gabumon's inheritable abilities with. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Lobomon. So Lobomon is just the hybrid win factor, where if we're unable to make all of the necessary swings onto the opponent, then we could still at least try to gain some extra memory and have Lobomon swing out of nowhere, taking the game, just because he has the ability where we could Digivolve him from our hand on top of one of our blue Tamers, as if it was a level 3 Digimon, and as long as that Tamer was already existing on the field, when we're going to be Digivolving up into him, then we're just going to be able to freely swing, and we have lots of different ways to manipulate our memory to be able to make this line of play easy and possible. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Leomon. So this is the EX2 version of Leomon, and this Leomon is another really good card just because it's acting similar to the BT1 Leomon, except a little bit better. So it does have an on-delete ability where we do get to gain 2 memory and draw a card, so not only when he's going to end up getting deleted, we're doing the same thing as the other Leomon, and consistency on our abilities is usually really important, but it also helps draw us some extra cards, and he also has some extra usability because he could potentially be a blocker, because during the opponent's turn, while you have a Tamer in play, then this Digimon gains the blocker ability to also be able to try to stave off some of the opponent's aggression, and have an alternate way to be able to have our Leomon be able to delete himself, and with our extra boosts, we actually could be able to use this Leomon to have a very effective blocker. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Leomon X Antibody. So Leomon X Antibody is a pretty spicy and interesting card, kind of acting like the pseudo level 5 for the deck. So he does Digivolve for free on top of our Leomons, so just that extra cycling is really, really nice, so that way we could try to dig through our deck a little bit more effectively, just because the majority of our level 4s are, well, Leomons. Then on top of that, he has a pretty decent all turns ability, where when this Digimon would be deleted in battle, then we get to play 1 Leomon from its Digivolution source without paying its memory cost. So ideally, we're going to try to chip with this Leomon paired up with the EX2 version of Leomon, so that way when this Leomon does die, then we get to play the EX2 Leomon for free, but even if we have to play the BT1 Leomon for free, that's still pretty good, just at adding some extra and consistent pressure onto the opponent. And then the last Digimon of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Gabumon Bond of Friendship. So Gabumon Bond of Friendship is going to be what's helping us win the game because, well, he's just going to be the card that's going to be dealing the most damage quickly. So what he's doing is he has a when attacking ability where if we have a Tamer in play, then we get to unsuspend this Digimon, so he's going to at least be able to swing twice, and if we're going to be giving him Security Tac Plus, that's already going to be 4 security alone, and with the extra Gabumon inheritable ability, that's going to be 6 security or swinging for the game, just because we do want to try to chip the opponent with our Leomons. Then on top of that, he has a nice when attacking ability to try to help make him be able to swing onto the opponent even easier, where we could return one of the opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon to the bottom of their deck and then trash all of their Digivolution sources. So if they have anything not a level 6 blocker, then we're going to be able to basically swing over it, just because we're going to be putting it onto the bottom of the deck to be able to get our damage across as consistently as we possibly can, making him just a really good win condition card. Next, on to the options, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Ice Wall because, well, it's Ice Wall. It has the powerful main ability to try to shut off some of the opponent's potential aggro, where all of the opponent's Digimon gain the when attacking ability of losing 2 memory until the end of their next turn. So it's just going to be taxing all of their attacks, so that way it's going to be trying to put them off of their game plan, buying us an extra turn to be able to find everything that we need and set everything up to combo off and potentially potentially kill them with. Then its security ability just is a nice security threat as well, where it is still anti-tempoing them, where we get to gain 2 memory, and that's basically taking away 2 memory from the opponent's turn to put them off of their game plan when they're going to be aggroing into us. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Blue Memory Boost. So Blue Memory Boost is a really good consistency tool because, well, we're still trying to find specific parts and pieces and line up very specific lines of play. So we want the deck to be as consistent as possible, where we get to reveal the top 4 cards of our deck and add 1 blue Digimon from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom in any order, with this card going into the battle area for its secondary main ability of Delay to gain 2 memory at a later turn, which is really good to be able to help set up and line up our plays in the future to make them as powerful and efficient and effective as we possibly can make them. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of A Delicate Plan. So because we're already playing a red splash, we might as well go all in and play a Delicate Plan to make our big power turn even safer. So it has the nice main ability where one of our Digimon gains the ability where this Digimon doesn't activate the security effects of option cards that are checked in the security for the turn. So this just turns off the opponent's security threats for the most part, and that's just what's making the card so good, is it's allowing us to swing as safely as we possibly can onto the opponent without any fear. And the main card that we're going to be using to help win the game with is going to be the other red option card in the form of 3 copies of Lightning Joust. So Lightning Joust is what's helping increase the overall damage output of our Bond, just because of how well Bond wants to work and what this card is doing. So what this card is doing is it has the main ability where one of our Digimon gets plus 2000 DP. Then if we have equal to or fewer cards in our security than the opponent, then the Digimon is going to be gaining security attack +1 for the turn. So this just helps us be able to deal lots of damage, because ideally we're going to be putting it on our Bond to make our Bond 16k, which is pretty strong, on top of the fact that the security attack plus just means that we'll be able to use him in combination with Bond to be able to break up to 4 to 6 security, making it a really good card to use overall for the deck, and what's allowing us to actually OTK the opponent with. Then lastly, onto the Tamers, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Davis. So Davis is going to be the deck's dedicated memory setter. We're not necessarily a huge fan of paying 4 for him compared to our other Tamers, but that's okay, because he's just really good acting as another consistency tool. So he has the on-play ability where we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, add 1 blue and 1 green Digimon from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So we actually can try to take advantage of the full effect, just because the Leomon X is also a green Digimon, so we could potentially take 2 cards off of it, but at worst, we're just using him to take 1 blue card off of the top. And then, like I say before, him being the memory setter means that we're just always going to be hard set to 3, so that way our Bond is going to be as playable and online as we possibly can in terms of memory, but we could just set up a memory boost to accomplish the same thing when we're going to be doing our Bond's turn. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Matt Ishida. So this is the BT6 version of Matt Ishida, and this is what's allowing us to be able to warp our Gabumons into our Bond of Friendship. So not only is it a good resource engine, where it has the ability where during your turn, when a Digimon with Gabumon or Garurumon in its name is moved from the raising area to the battle area, we get to gain a memory and draw a card. So this is just helping our plays out of raising to be a little bit more efficient, on top of the fact that he has the secondary main ability where once per turn, we could Digivolve one of our Gabumons into a Bond of Friendship from our hand by paying its Digivolution cost and ignoring its level requirement. Then, if we have 1 or more cards in our security, then we have to delete the Digimon at the end of the turn. But if we're killing the opponent the turn we're bonding, then it doesn't necessarily matter, and this card also helps set up our Lightning Joust to ensure that we're going to be at lower security than the opponent if we're not already, just because we do have to trash our security. So this just easily turns Lightning Joust online, while allowing us to warp and gain us resources all in one card, and paired up with the BT6 Gabumon could actually cost us 2 to play, which is super efficient to use. And then the last tamer of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Matt and Sora. So Matt and Sora is another super important tamer because, well, not only does he have Matt Ishida in his name to be able to use with our BT6 Gabumon, but this is also going to be acting as the red source to be able to utilize our red options. So it has the nice ability where at the start of our main phase, if we have 8 or more cards in our hand, then we get to gain a memory, and if the opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand, then we also get to gain a memory, helping with the overall memory efficiency of the deck. Then on top of that, it's adding some extra slight control to the deck, where during your turn, when one of our red or blue Digimon becomes unsuspended, we may suspend this tamer to be able to return a level 3 Digimon back to the owner's hand. So we do have ways to be able to use this during our turn to unsuspend some of our Digimon, but most of the time we're just going to try to use this to chip with one of our level 4s. If our level 4 lives while this card's on the field, then we get to unsuspend it at the beginning of our turn, thus triggering the Matt and Sora's ability if we so choose, and picking off level 3s could be pretty important to be able to stop memory blockers from shutting off our memory generation. And then there's still just a whole bunch of different tech and tools to think about incorporating and including, all depending on what you feel like you want to use and how you want to play the deck. So if you wanted to, you could swap out the Leomon package with the hybrid package, so that way you could run Strabimon as a good searching tool to look for any of our hybrid Digimon, which we have Korikakumon as a good stunlock tool to still think about using, even with Tommy being limited to 1, and we still have Kumamon that's basically doing the same thing as Lobomon, except he actually is trashing from the opponent's inheritables, which may or may not matter. Then we still have Beowulfmon as a good card to use, so that way we could try to bounce our hybrids back to our hand for more chip potential. On top of the fact that if we are going to be running some hybrids, we could run Koji to use for his inheritable and Kendo Garurumon to gain jamming to have some more consistent and easy pressure for the opponent. Plus, if you're running the jamming with Kendo Garurumon, then we could pair that up with Lightning Joust to be able to get 2 checks relatively early and easily with. Then if you wanted to double down on the Leomon package and run an extra tamer, then we do have Jerry as a really good tamer to help play our Leomons. It won't be able to play Leomon X Antibody, but it will be able to play the others, and it also is a nice card to help us with our overall card draw, because when the opponent is going to be attacking with their Digimon, then Jerry's going to help us draw some extra cards for that action. And with the Leomon package, you could also think about running the BT1 Gomamon, just because it combos very nicely with our Leomons for his on-delete inheritable ability of gaining us a memory. Then if you just want to play some solid generic level 4s, we do have those as well in the form of Ciceramon, because, well, he has jamming, and we could pair this up again with Lightning Joust to be able to get 2 checks relatively quickly and easily with. And a generic level 3 that we could use is Madoki Betamon to help shut off some of the opponent's memory manipulating shenanigans. And then we could also swap out of the Leomon package, and we don't necessarily need to run the hybrid package if we don't want to, and instead we could aggress with the armor package, just because we have Halcymon that digivolves off of blue and can act as some solid aggro and control onto the opponents, just because the armor purge ability will make him go back into a Gabumon for us to reuse into a bond later, and the when attacking inheritable ability helps us delete the opponent's low-level Digimon, so that way we could try to clear and get rid of some of those pesky anti-meta rookies. And for a similar reason, we also have Submarinemon, just because, again, it could still digivolve off of blue, it has Armor Purge, and on top of that, it could help trash the bottom of the opponent's inheritables, which, again, may or may not matter, and on top of that, it helps us be able to delete the opponent's low-level Digimon through DP reduction this time. Then we still have some very powerful offensive and defensive cards. So defensively, you could still try to use Howling Memory Boost to stunlock the opponent's Digimon, and it's still a memory boost to gain us memory at a later turn. And then another good defensive card we could think about using is going to be Cocytus Breath to try to bounce the opponent's Digimon that we might not be able to be interacting with otherwise, on top of the fact that it is just still a good security threat to activate its main, again, bouncing the opponent's Digimon. Then we do have Hammer Spark if we want to lean a little bit more into the offensive side, just because, well, its security ability of gaining 2 memory, it could help still be a good security threat, on top of the fact that the instant tempo that it gives us by gaining 1 memory for free is still really good, allowing us to extend and make more powerful plays possible. Then if you don't feel like running Lightning Joust or don't have access to Lightning Joust, then you could easily just run Offense Plugin A to do something very similar with, except you don't need a red source in order to use Offense Plugin A. But it does cost 1 more, and it doesn't offer any extra DP, which is why I like Lightning Joust a little bit more, especially since we're already going to be dealing damage to ourselves. But this is just a good substitute with a good security ability to add it to our hand and reveal the top 3 cards of our deck to add a Tamer from among them into our hand, which we're still playing a decent amount of Tamers, so it's acting as some extra consistency at the trade-off of less usability. And then on top of that, we still just have a slew of other Tamers that we could think about running. So we do have Sora and Joe as a really good duo Tamer to help us gain some extra memory, for the opponent having Digimon with no Digivolution sources, while acting as another way to strip some of the inheritable sources from the opponent. We do have some really good options in the form of Kyoshiro and TK to help us be able to set our memory to 3 and draw us some cards. Then if you do just need a memory setter that's also going to be acting as a red source because you want to play some various other Tamers, then we do have Hero as another good memory setter for the deck, on top of the fact that he'll help boost our bond to be a little bit stronger than he normally would. So if you use Hero in combination with Lightning Joust, then it'll be a 4,000 boost onto our bond, ensuring that he's going to be able to beat over most, if not everything, out of the opponent's security. And then a really good tech Tamer that you could run is going to be Analog Youth, just because it's a good consistency tool for a low-costed Tamer. And on top of that, it also has the added usability to help reload our raising area when our bond is going to be dying if we're unable to OTK the opponent. But for the most part, this is just my interpretation of a really solid core or shell for a Gabumon Bond of Friendship deck in BT9. I think a Gabumon Bond of Friendship with all of the different tech and tools that you can incorporate in it could still be a very powerful and very fun deck to play in this competitive environment, just because we still have the ability to also OTK the opponent with. Even though it's not going to be hyper tier 1 meta competitive, it still just makes a lot of different cards playable and viable if this is the type of deck that you're going to be going for, just because you want to still be able to use some of your older cards. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.